there's a story behind the girl, there's a story behind the dress, and I wanted to share that with Dana and just see what she thinks about that, and also want to see what you think about that. So we'll go with Candy first, and I'll give this to her. So here you go. This one is Candy. This one is kind of inspired by when you're a kid and you love candy and life is all about sweetness and it's a happy kind of moment, and I wanted to capture that in a dress. But kind of, since I'm an adult, I still have to look like an adult, not a kid. So this was my kind of adult take on that kind of candy princess feel to it. It's sleek, it's simple, the fabric itself is very comfortable since it's a scuba knit. There's still a little bit of an interest with the whole high-low hemline. So Candy, she's sweet, she's positive, she tends to look on the bright side of life. And pink is also the color of hope. Pink is the color of dreams, it's kind of a romantic feminine color. But I always felt it's a very positive, uplifting color, and it's one of my favorite colors. So this is Candy. And
so why did you choose exactly the scuba fabric?
So scuba fabric, it's a very useful fabric to use. It's a knit fabric, and it's one step lower than neoprene. So neoprene is a 3-layered fabric. It has this on the outside, and then there's a layer of foam in the middle, and then another layer of this fabric on the outside. So scuba knit just takes one of the layers. And so you still have that stretchiness and that durability, but it's not so heavy like neoprene. And although neoprene has been used for fashion, it's getting a lot more popular and it's very useful. It is pretty heavy and it can get very warm very quickly because scuba is meant to keep you warm while you're diving.
So when you say neoprene, does it mean it's the combination of the 3 layers?
Yes.
All at once?
Mm-hmm.
And you're saying that the reason why they use neoprene is because they want to keep divers warm, right?
Right. It's meant to keep you warm and it's meant to keep you insulated. And you can definitely use it for, it's getting more popular to use just in fashion, especially in streetwear.
Yes.
And it has a really good body and a really good drape. The colors are really nice. And it's not too difficult to sew with, even though it's a little bit thick, and it's very durable. The drawback is that it's very heavy and it can get very hot. So I don't recommend wearing that out in summer at all. And we live in Texas, so that's not a good idea. But it does have some cool applications for it. So I have actually a jacket I'm trying to make it of neoprene.
Perfect.
That'll work for that.
But scuba dresses, can you wear them for summer?
Yeah, scuba you can, because scuba knit is a thinner knit. It's not as, so neoprene is thicker. And scuba knit you can really wear for any kind of occasion. It's a really good all-purpose fabric that's gotten very popular. So
what is the advantage of using scuba fabric?
So scuba is an advantage because it has the same properties of a regular knit fabric in that it's stretchy, it's soft, it's comfortable, it doesn't fray as a woven would. So sometimes you don't even have to finish it if you don't want to as a stylistic choice. So that's a nice thing about it. You don't have to worry about the edges fraying. So
this is what you mean by finish it?
Yes.
Like the finishing of it. You don't have to fold it and then
hem it down. You don't necessarily have to, even though it tends to look more professional that way. But if you feel like, well, stylistically I don't want to, you really don't have to because it's not going to fray. So it won't be noticeable if you don't.
It won't form like fringes with the thread, right?
Exactly. So it's very comfortable to use. It's very stretchy. It's very versatile. And it's a little bit more, if you can tell from here, it's a little bit thicker than your average knit fabric. So that gives it a little bit more strength. And since I'm doing this very long kind of, this long skirt, the body is going to look really nice on it. It drapes very nicely. So that's one of the advantages that I have with it. And so I have, so I actually enjoyed kind of using this fabric a lot. I have a lot of this fabric because can be a fabric hoarder sometimes, but I'm getting through it. I'm working through my stash. It's actually this fabric right here that I used for this dress.
So it looks a little bit, let's see. It looks a little bit lighter on you. It looks a little darker here.
I think
maybe because you paired this with like lace, with darker lace, yeah.
Yeah, and this one, I paired this with a navy lace, so I think this looks a little bit lighter.
With the contrast, you can feel it, that it's lighter. You feel that it's lighter. So tell us more about the story of that fabric.
So I ended up with a lot of this fabric on accident because apparently I don't know how eBay works. And I needed 6 yards for some projects, which is already a lot of fabric. And I was requesting a combined invoice, and I didn't realize that each time you you click a request invoice, you're actually being charged. You don't get a confirmation right away. So my genius self ended up with 18 yards of scuba knit fabric. And it's heavy. It's not as heavy as neoprene, but when it came in, it was this huge box. I was like, what is this? And I was like, oh, wow, okay, that's what happens when you don't read directions. But the good news is that I'm going to be making a lot of stuff out of it because I'm not going to throw it away. Obviously, I don't like to waste fabric anyway.
Yes.
So you'll be seeing my closet and it'll just be pink scuba knit and everything. It'll be like pink scuba knit dresses, pink scuba knit pants, just everything.
Perfect. So you have a whole scuba collection.
Basically, I'm going to have all of it because I wasn't paying attention. Good. So everyone, please, everyone pay attention and don't end up like me. So that was Candy there, that's scuba knit. So on to the next dress. Next one is ink. This one is my take on a Mandarin collar dress. I really love all things Asian-inspired art and fashion. It's one of my favorite things. And so this is kind of my take on that traditional Mandarin collar. And I changed it up a little bit, so it's more of a halter in the front and in the back. And it's actually a bias cut dress, bias cut skirt, so it has a really nice drape to it. And
so when you say bias cut skirt, can you explain to them what it means?
So a bias cut is anything that's cut 45 degrees on a piece of fabric. And what that means is that changes the weight of how it drapes, and it also changes a little bit of how it drapes around the body, because since it's diagonal, it tends to, the best way I can explain it is that when you put it on, it feels a little bit like liquid because the weight is different. So a lot of bias cut dresses were very popular during the 30s. So those really lovely long evening dresses, those are bias cut dresses. And you use up more fabric. So like I basically used up the whole bolt of fabric making this dress. But it is worth it. It's commonly seen in a lot of special occasion wear, because since you use more fabric, people tend to want to use it for a special occasion, and it's usually a little bit more expensive. And then lastly, I added this little feature to it. So a lot of the traditional Chinese style dresses, there's usually a slit, and it's usually not a bias cut, it's usually like a straight cut, and it's usually 2 slits, but I wanted to have just 1 slit on the side, and it's actually a zipper, so you can decide how much of the slit you want to show. And it's also more of like a mermaid cut, so there you can either have like a sleek feel to it, or you can put the slit and it'll be more volume as you walk around.
So it's gonna still show your curves, it's gonna still show your figure, but at the same time you can decide if you want to wear a slit or do not slit.
Exactly.
For the dress.
Exactly.
Show your sandals, your shoes, your pumps.
Exactly. And so that's one that I really like. So the story behind this girl is I named her Ink, because I was inspired by Chinese, or Asian, I should say, Asian style watercolor painting with ink, the sumie, or just the ink stick. So she's very sleek, she's very modern, she's very strong too, she's very smart and powerful, and that's kind of the feeling I like to get from her. But it's also a very kind of classic feel to it. It's something that you can wear for really any occasion because it's black, and it's black usually in Asian cultures is a color of steadiness. It tends to be the color of dependability.
It's not a color that could easily change. It's a color that will retain its characteristics. It's not easily transformed or altered.
Exactly. Exactly. Black is seen in Asian cultures as that fixed kind of feeling, that it doesn't change, it's not altered. It's tend to be seen as a sign of maturity or a sign of stability.
Perfect. Strength. Did you draw her hair short, or is there an updo?
It's actually an updo. And so I was kind of experimenting. I still don't know what I want to do with the hair yet. Zaina's much better at that than I am, so she's going to give me some tips on what I should do.
Would love to hear also your style.
So I was thinking probably an updo, like some kind of like a French updo, but I'm thinking we could try something even a little like spunky with her hairstyle to give it a little edge to her. I'm willing to try something new with that, just because my personal style is like very feminine and girly, but I'm willing to change it up a little.
So tell us more about the updo. I see that you have a bump.
So there's a slight bump. There's a slight bump to kind of give it like this almost faux mohawk feeling to it, but not too much because I still want it to be very classy. And then the back right here would be that traditional kind of French updo, but kind of like a little high.
Actually, Kim has 2 kinds of fabric here.
So there's 2 sides to the fabric. And I was kind of I was gonna ask Zaina for her opinion on which side I should use because they're actually both very pretty in their own ways. And like she was saying, so the front part is more matte and it's a little bit flatter, and the stitching, there's embroidery on the fabric there, but it's not as visible. And my question was, well, which do I want to show? Do I want to show more of this matte feel to it with less of the embroidery visible, or do I want this like rich kind of black with the embroideries visible? And it's softer too. It's like it almost feels like a faux suede. So it feels really nice, but I kind of wanted to get her opinion on what she thought.
It does feel like suede. I agree. Yeah. I like, I prefer the lower one, the one where you can feel the stitches much more, and the one that feels softer and darker, like a vivid black color. I feel like it's more daring and it's more bold to be wearing such a color. This one I would wear it more for maybe like wear to work kind of dress. It's nice, it's more subtle, it's more for like every day. You can dress it up, you can dress it down, but this one is more of a, you know, more of a fashion statement.
Okay, then I like that because I feel that her story, with her being kind of more daring and more fearless, I think she would prefer this side as opposed to this side. This would be good for somebody that I guess doesn't want to stand out as much, but I think for her particular character she would like this. It also feels really nice too. It's really soft, so I'm thinking I probably will keep that. So okay,
I agree. And is this the back of the dress?
Yeah, this is the back right here. So,
it's almost identical to the front, right? Is this muslin or see-through in the middle?
No, in fact, that was another thing too, is I wasn't sure if I wanted to add the little frog closures as a decoration or if I wanted to keep it just blank, because of like the little stitching is already here. So originally I had actually added small black frog closures, and then I took them out, but I just painted over it with...
so can you explain to us more about the closure?
Sure, so frog closures are those traditional Asian closures where they're made out of a cording, and back then when zippers weren't really available, that was how you would close your clothes. You would have one side with a little loop and the other side with a little ball, and then you would just loop them together. And it is funny because when I was cutting out the bias out of it, you have to let it hang a little bit because you don't want to sew it right away. Because of the way it hangs, the hem is going to shift a little bit, and the seams can shift too. So you don't want to sew it right away. You usually want to hang so like you can get the new shape you can get accustomed to the new shape. But it's really heavy at first because of just the way the fabric itself is fairly thick, and just because it's so much of it, it's pretty heavy. So I was like lugging it around trying to like find somewhere to put so it can hang, and I did find a place for it, but I was like, oh, it's gonna be worth it, you know.
And you use lining for it?
This one I don't have to because it's already really thick.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be sweating at the event either. And so I'm lucky that this one doesn't really need one, but it's just heavy because the skirt itself is really long. And it's actually gonna have a small little train in the back. Well, it's 2 godets, so it's like a small little train. So it's going to be a really cool dress, but it is kind of heavy just because the material is, and it's a bias cut. So I'm excited, but I'm like, okay, I have to kind of prepare for that. So that was Ink, and if you like her the best, be sure to vote for her. So last one is Lal. So I was gifted a silk sari, and the person said, do whatever you want with it. You know, cut it up, make something out of it, because, you know, it's like, I'm not going to use it. So I was kind of inspired by something Asian, but it also combined the Indian aspect of it, because it's a very bright red silk color, but it's also sheer. So I had to find another lining underneath it, and I was inspired by this kind of asymmetrical cut.
So it seems like it's an asymmetrical cut to the side, right?
Yes.
It's not to the front. Like the high-lows that we usually see are more like high from the front, low in the back. But this one seems to be more on the side, which I really like.
Yeah, this one's totally on the side because I was actually debating when I was sketching if I wanted to do another high-low, because I've been doing a lot of high-lows lately, and I thought, no, I feel like this one would look better if I did it just like an asymmetrical. And because it's red and so strong, I feel like it would kind of match a little bit. I would feel like it would really look nice.
Is this fabric going to be like very flowy?
It is. This one right here, this particular one right here, the way I've cut it, I did cut it as a circle skirt. So it is actually more flowy. There's a little bit more of some texture at the bottom. And the way that I've sewn the bottom, I used a rolled hem. So it creates this little bit of like these little like they call them like lettuce rolls.
Like
at the bottom.
this.
Yes. It creates a little bit of that at the
Yeah.
bottom, and it looks really pretty.
Yeah, I like this type of hem.
And you see it a lot in formal wear, and a lot of times they'll actually add a little bit of fishing wire underneath it to really keep the curls like really pronounced.
Love that. I used to have a skirt growing up, exactly like what you were describing, and I didn't get to enjoy it much, so I'll need something like that soon.
Yeah. So a circle skirt is a cut of a skirt that exactly what it sounds like. You cut a circle for the waist, and then you cut a circle. The hem is also a circle that follows around. And then when you lift it up from the middle and then you were to wear it, it has this very lovely drape to it. So when you spin around, it spins around in a circle.
And this is the best part.
That's one of the best parts about it. So
it lifts and it becomes more like a circle.
Yes.
When you're spinning.
It was super popular during the 50s.
Yeah.
That's something. So it's like a 50s skirt.
For like swing dance.
So I did the same thing, but instead of it being a full circle, it's off to the side. So it's kind of like it's still a circle skirt, but it's just not even all around. One side is a little bit longer than the other, but it still creates that kind of drapey feel to it. So that while I twirl around, there'll still be some movement.
Perfect.
Because I don't want to. It's a beautiful silk de peony, but it's really, really sheer. This particular one. And so I had to find a lining for it. And the good news about it though is that with this lining, it makes the top fabric a little bit more vivid. But there is going to be like a sheer factor to it, so because the lining goes about a little bit above my knee. So like there still feels like there's this sheer factor.
So the lower part of it, so below the knee, all the way down, it's going to be sheer.
Yeah, basically.
Perfect. Yeah, it's gonna look great.
And so the lining though follows still the shape of the asymmetrical, because I didn't want to like kill that. I still wanted to like follow it a little bit more, but there's a sheer like aspect to it, which I thought, oh, that could be kind of cool. And I don't like to waste fabric. I like to use as much of the fabric as possible.
Of course.
And so the sari had a really beautiful border on it, and then this was the border here. I just cut it in half. So this part right here goes right above here. So like this, I think this connects to this top right
So
here.
more like this.
Yeah, that would be like that right
More
there.
like this.
Yes.
So part of it is going to be the yellow part, and then some other parts of it are going to be the gold and red.
Yes.
And can you tell us more about the kind of fabric that we have in both of these?
Sure. So with this particular one is called a zari fabric. Right here. And so this is usually like a polyester blend or a metallic blend. Back in the day though, in India, they actually would use like real gold for it.
Wow.
And so it's it feels a little bit different too.
They're
It feels
fancy.
a little bit more stiff.
Yes, of course.
And that's what accounts for the shine.
It feels more like a thread, but it's like it's not a thread that bends easily.
It almost feels like a bristle on a hairbrush a little bit,
Yes.
right? That's what it feels like.
Yeah, like a soft bristle. Yeah.
And that particular thread is also very popular in traditional Indian embroidery and handiwork. So when you see like Indian embroidery on formal wear or bridal wear, and it's very heavy and it's shiny, it's usually that. It's the zari thread, and it comes in either a silver or gold. So that's what's in this particular trim. And I decided to use a trim on the edges of the collar, and then on the waistband as well. I'm gonna have the border kind of wrap around, and you can tie it in the front, so it kind of adds just a little bit of interest to it. I like combining different things because I feel that every culture has beautiful ideas, and then if you combine them too, what kind of beautiful idea can you make?
Exactly.